suffer from muscle pain and dysfunction? Did you know that 80% of people have experienced back pain in their life? And it's the number one reason why people go on disability leave from their jobs. To date, $250 billion is spent annually on chronic pain. And today we're going to talk about where chronic pain comes from. We're going to deep dive down into the root of where it stems from. Don't want to miss this video. Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Carrie Cox, and welcome to my channel where we learn how to use our personal power to build a connection between our mind, body, and spirit. In today's video, we are going to talk about muscle pain and dysfunction, or any kind of chronic pain that we are experiencing in our body. I've been a body worker for years now and have seen all kinds of cases come through my practice. I am certified as a Bonnie Prudden myotherapist, and Bonnie Prudden was a pioneer when it came to discovering a therapy for diffusing trigger points. A trigger point is just a term for a knot in the muscle. And knots in our muscle tissues stem from oxygen deprivation to the site. And we were trained that we collect trigger points throughout our entire life based on the things that we do repetitively, our hobbies, our occupation, injuries, accidents, and so forth. We're collecting all these trigger points, and they don't typically cause us any problems. In fact, it keeps some sort of tension in the muscles. But when we go under any kind of physical or emotional stress, those trigger points can light up and make the muscle go into spasm and then start to create pain for somebody. But when I started working on people, I knew that there was something much deeper, something beyond just this explanation of why people were experiencing chronic pain and what the underlying issue was that created that tension to begin with. And basically, what I was finding in my practice was that when I was working on a specific point in someone's body, I could figure out the cause for that oxygen deprivation in the muscle beyond just the health history I was taking on a physical level. But when I dived deeper into the emotional trauma that they were holding on to in that site, we were able to bring out of the subconscious what this person has been holding on to their entire life and bring it into the consciousness. And it seemed to be that through that process, coupled with the body work, people were getting better faster. So through the work of Dr. John Sarno and Dr. Bruce Lipton, I have been able to merge that with everything I learned from Bonnie Prudden myotherapy, and I want to bring all of that here today in a discussion with you so that if you are suffering from chronic pain, then you can begin to dive deeper into your pain and realize on a much deeper level where this pain is stemming from. Dr. John Sarno discovered a term called TMS, which stands for Tension Myositis Syndrome. He says that pain syndromes have an emotional root, even the ones that you believe were caused by injury or accident. He says that there's a physiological alteration in the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and the nerves, and he calls this TMS. So through all of the brain science that has emerged over the last 20, 30, 40 years, we can determine now our pain and disease stem from inner tension. And this inner tension is created from our repressed emotions and through our personality traits. That inner tension is what TMS is. And so what this is really saying is that all of this stems from the brain. It doesn't start from that structural abnormality. It doesn't start from the accident or the injury. It doesn't start from the repetitive motions that we're doing. It actually starts from the nervous system, from the autonomic nervous system and the brain and the body trying to protect itself from whatever trauma that you've experienced, whatever repressed emotion that you're holding on to. Or it could come from our personality traits, because our personality traits have been learned over the course of our lifetime. We have adapted or learned these traits in order to survive, in order to feel safe. And it's through these traits, these personality traits, or these habits, or this programming that has happened to us, that we have developed inner tension within us which then later manifests into physical disease, illness, or physical chronic pain. Because the brain is saying to the body, we would rather feel physical pain than the emotional pain. The emotional pain is harder for some people to deal with than other people. And the reason why this makes so much sense to me is because when I started learning body work, I would question to my mentors, my teachers, why is it that one person can have spondylolisthesis? Okay, here's a good example. I have spondylolisthesis in my L5, and so does my husband. Neither one of us have chronic back pain. I've never had a backache in my entire life, a low back pain. But yet, my vertebrae don't line up. My L5 and L4 aren't where they're supposed to be. But I've never experienced back pain in my life. I work on countless people. I can't even tell you how many people I work on that have spondylolisthesis in L4 and L5 specifically, and yet have chronic pain every single day of their life. Another example is I work on a lot of people with headaches and migraines, and the muscles in the back of the neck and in the upper trap, shoulder area, and in the head are super tight. They're tender. They refer pain. They experience headaches every single day. Now, if you were to feel my neck muscles and my trap muscles, they would feel extremely tight. I put my hands and work those muscles on other people. I know what they feel like, and I know what my own feel like, and they feel the exact same. So why is it that some people, their muscles feel the same way as someone else's muscles who never has a headache in their entire life, who never gets a headache? Why do we have the exact same feeling in the muscle, the exact same tightness, but one person can experience headaches and migraines and someone else doesn't? These are the questions that I would pose that didn't make any sense. The trigger points, when you pushed on them, would even refer the same. If you were to push on my trigger points in my neck, they will refer pain to my forehead, to over the eye, just like somebody who experiences daily headaches. But yet I don't experience daily headaches. And I would question, why is that? That doesn't make sense to me. And so what I was able to find by reading Dr. John Sarno's books, the body is going to protect itself in different ways. So in one person's way, it could be that their body, their brain decides, you know what? I don't want to feel the emotional pain, so I'm going to present a headache so that you can focus all your time and energy on that headache. But this person over here, we're going to give them a chronic infection instead. And we're going to have their mind focus on this infection. So the body or the brain is in the autonomic nervous system is going to protect people in different ways based on what they're repressing, what trauma they are holding on to. Because for one person, it might be they may have experienced trauma back when they were 5 years old that was very traumatic, and their nervous system may be in a state of fight or flight all the time in order to protect. And this person over here may have experienced something else, like maybe in 4th grade they had an embarrassing moment in their classroom and they repressed that feeling because it was super embarrassing, and so they repressed the feeling into the body, and now it's coming out as a chronic infection. Whereas this person over here was stuck in fight or flight, so maybe for them, it is coming out in everyday headaches and anxiety. So the body is going to present TMS or the symptoms of TMS in different ways depending on what it is we're repressing and how our nervous system was wired, how we wired because we actually wired ourselves in a way to feel safe, and that's why this is happening. And we're all viewing the world and having experiences through a different lens. Somebody else could be seeing it through a different lens of fear than someone else, and so it's going to present itself much differently. But the way to rewire the brain and the way to get rid of these repressed emotions can all be healed in the same way. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to heal that pain and that muscle dysfunction that is presenting itself in the symptom of pain or disease or illness. So TMS happens because we are experiencing something maybe that feels embarrassing or unpleasant, doesn't feel very good, and so we don't want to look at it, we don't want to feel it again, so it creates tension inside the body, and tension is a way of guarding ourselves or blocking having to feel those things again. These repressed emotions create a process in the autonomic nervous system that reduces blood flow to the muscles, tendons, nerves, and ligaments. And as a result, that painful muscle pain that we feel is experienced because the body decides it would rather feel the physical pain than the emotional pain. And so it becomes a distraction. TMS is how our brain decides to divert away from those unpleasant experiences or feelings or emotions. And the mind can use any organ or any system in the body as a defense against those emotions. And what happens is these emotions are sitting in our subconsciousness. We aren't even aware of them. When somebody first sits down with me, it's like the first thing they think of is, I had a normal childhood. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me emotionally. I have a good life. I'm happy. But they haven't really dived deeper into that subconscious mind. We know through the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton that our unconscious mind is in the driver's seat 95% of our day. So we are only using our conscious mind 5% of the day. Our unconscious mind is holding on to a whole lot of baggage, a whole lot of repressed emotions, experiences, things we don't want to think about. And it's running through programming. We don't even have to think about things when we're running through our autonomic nervous system in that subconscious mind. So there are things that we can do and we don't have to think about doing them. That's how a lot of the systems and organs in our body works. We don't have to tell our stomach to digest food. We don't have to tell our muscle to contract and relax so that we can move our body. It just does it automatically through the autonomic nervous system. So 95% of our day is running through our subconscious mind. When we bring things out of that subconscious mind and look at it and become aware of it, that's all it takes is to build awareness of it. Then the tension dissolves away because we become aware. So when I'm working on people, I can usually figure out where their tension is, how it feels, and get them talking about where it stems from. And once that they open up their conscious mind and bring out of their subconscious mind the event that created that tension to begin with, they start talking about it. Now they are releasing that tension that was stuck in that spot to begin with. That has been something that has happened throughout my practice naturally on its own. And I've helped countless number of people through healing their pain, physical pain, through them bringing out of their subconscious where that tension stemmed from. What blows my mind about Dr. John Sarno's work is adding to the repressed emotions, because that I intuitively, innately knew and have had countless number of people share their experiences with me in my treatment room. But what he brings to light is so phenomenal because I can see the patterns in my patients and people I'm working with, that there's this whole dynamic of our personality traits that also play a part in our chronic pain. And so if you are suffering from TMS, it could be your personality traits that have played a part in you holding on to that physical pain. So we're going to dive deeper into that, and we're going to talk a little bit first about the physiology around TMS real quick, just so that you can understand what's happening in the body when we experience this inner tension within us. Because the question that a lot of people will pose is, well, my foot hurts because I tripped and fell and twisted my ankle, or my back hurts because I bent over to pick something up and I twisted wrong. I've even had some people throw their back out just from leaning over the sink to brush their teeth. So we have been conditioned or programmed to believe we physically do something and it causes physical pain, But I want you to understand that the injury or the accident is just the trigger or the physical stress on the body to a weakened point that was already there. So there was already a weakened area of the body that was holding on to tension from an earlier experience, and it was the physical act in the case of falling and twisting your ankle. Well, if the ankle had been strong and didn't already have a history of problems, we may have just recovered very quickly and moved on from our ankle injury. But when the pain is lingering and won't go away, probably there was already inner tension there to begin with. So as a Bonnie Prudden myotherapist, I tell all of my clients that we are collecting these trigger points through our entire lifetime based on repetitive motion, hobbies, occupation, accidents, injuries. But my observation and my question is, what if the trigger points are the emotional tension that we are holding in our body from our feelings during those things that we are doing? Good example, you hate your job. You hate going there every day. So every day you go to your job and you feel like you're suffering, you aren't enjoying what you're doing, but you have to sit there at a desk all day long, at a computer, doing these repetitive motions that we do, and you don't have joy in your daily life. You have no joy in what you are doing. You're not enjoying your experience. You are creating tension within your body based on those feelings of not enjoying what you're doing. And it's through the repetitive motion coupled with those emotional feelings that is creating the trigger points. So when we are experiencing tension, what happens is we get a restriction in our blood flow. The body temporarily restricts blood vessels and creates a weak point in the body. The muscles, tendons, ligaments, nerves, and bones are susceptible to setting off a pain signal, and then we become more susceptible to injury. Dr. John Sarno says tension causes oxygen deprivation, which is the cause of muscle spasms and TMS. And I use that same theory in speaking to my patients about trigger points. So when we're talking about the physiology of TMS, we know that it starts in the brain. So the autonomic nervous system kicks on when we are repressing an emotion that we aren't allowing to move through our body. So the key is when we're feeling something, we need to stop, do some breath work, and allow it to move through the body. Allow ourselves to feel it. Don't ignore it and push it down. So we're feeling this emotion. We're not allowing it to move through the body. The autonomic nervous system kicks off. It starts to reduce blood flow to muscles, nerves, tendons, or ligaments. And as a result, we start to feel pain in our body. The autonomic nervous system controls systems involuntarily. It controls our heartbeat. It controls our breathing. It controls the processes in our body that we don't have to think about. It also controls our fight or flight response. And this can increase and decrease our blood flow and where it chooses to go in the body. So when we have a lack of blood flow in our muscles, it's called ischemia. And the tissues involved are getting less than their normal amounts of blood that they're supposed to get. And this creates a knot in the muscle or a trigger point. The result is when we have less blood in those tissues, we can experience pain, numbness, tingling, and even weakness. Let's talk about where these two things come from. They come from repressed emotions and our personality traits. Let's break down what Dr. Sarno says tension is. He says that tension is emotions that are generated in the unconscious mind. They are the emotions that we have shoved away in the unconscious part of our mind because maybe it was unpleasant, it didn't feel good in the moment, we don't want to experience that again, and we certainly don't want the outside world to see it or to know about it. So our repressed emotions become anything that is unpleasant or painful to us, or even embarrassing. I had a client recently who came in because she has had jaw pain her whole life. And as we were going through her health history, we started talking and I asked her if she experienced any injuries or accidents. And she mentioned that in middle school, she fell and hit her chin and has had jaw pain ever since. And right away I knew, oh, she fell in front of her entire middle school class in PE and hit her chin. Well, that would be very embarrassing for somebody in 7th or 8th grade. That's the time of our life where we're a young teenager and, image is important and we're going through changes in our body and we're experiencing a lot of social pressures. So the thought of falling in front of everybody in PE class could be highly embarrassing to a 7th or 8th grader. So right away I started questioning, did you feel embarrassed in that moment? What happened in that moment? And as we talked about it, the more she talked about it, the more she was bringing up the story out of her unconscious mind and into her consciousness, into her awareness. And when we merged the two together of, oh, I've been experiencing this jaw pain my entire life ever since this incident happened, and there were these embarrassing feelings, and she expressed and retold the story and brought it out of that subconscious mind, she then became aware of the link between her jaw pain and that embarrassing emotion. And once she was able to get it out, I went in and worked on the actual muscles and did a treatment. And the next time I saw her, she said that she had barely experienced any jaw pain since that first treatment. So we were able to put into her conscious mind the root cause of her jaw pain, which that in itself was so healing because we got rid of the emotion that has been repressed inside of her jaw her entire life. So our TMS can be a link to our repressed emotions or our embarrassing emotions. It could be usually is because we kind of hold on to these things for decades before it starts to cause actual pain. And so because we've been holding on to things for so long, what ends up happening is it turns into anger and resentment. And then there's also a fear component there. But this anger and resentment build up from these years and years of repression, and we're totally unaware of it. It can stem from being responsible for a loved one. Maybe as a child, you had a very irresponsible parent who this parent was emotionally unable to care for you and take care of themselves. So you ended up parenting them when you were just the child. You're going to be holding a lot of anger and resentment inside for that. Maybe as a parent, you've carried the burden on your back for having to care for a child into that child's adulthood because they weren't able to take responsibility for themselves. You've had to carry the responsibility of that child financially or emotionally or mentally or whatever it is throughout that child's life. Even though we may love our parent or love our child and it still could feel like a burden. And it's that burden, that inner tension that we're holding on to that will then later turn into TMS. And that's because this inner tension, this inner anger becomes internalized. We have a lot of anxiety that's plaguing the world today, especially after dealing with a worldwide plague situation. And Dr. Sarno says that anxiety is a buildup of that repressed anger that we're holding on to, and that the anger sensations are the reactions in the body that are built up. Okay, so the interesting part of TMS is it's not just the emotions that we're repressing, but it can also be our personalities. So the number one commonality in people who suffer from back pain through Dr. Sarno's work is the personality trait of the perfectionist. And when I think back over all of my patients that have had back pain, the perfectionist seems to be a commonality amongst all my patients too. So let's talk about what the perfectionist is. The perfectionist it could be somebody who maybe likes things neat and tidy, but doesn't always have to just be neat and tidy. It could be somebody who is overly responsible. I have many, many clients who were latchkey kids, and who were the oldest in the family and responsible for their siblings. Perfectionist is somebody who is hardworking, overly responsible, success-oriented. They worry about everything. They're very driven, and they're always searching for new challenges in life. They place very high standards on themselves, and they're very critical of themselves and others. Okay, so this is the number one commonality for people who suffer from back pain. And yours may not be coming out as back pain. It may be coming out in another pain in the body. An example Sarno gives for the perfectionist is, let's say that you have this need to have a very clean and very tidy house, but no one else in the house cares if it's clean or not because they're not a perfectionist. Okay? You have to feel the burden of picking up everybody's stuff because it bothers you if things aren't neat and tidy around you. So the burden becomes your burden to keep the house neat and tidy because no one else cares. It doesn't affect them in the same way. It only bothers you. But you are always the one that's picking everything up, and that you start to repress inside every time you're cleaning up everyone's stuff. You feel angry about it. You feel resentful to everyone around you about it because it's bothering you. But it's your choice to feel that way. It's your burden. It's only bothering you. It's not bothering anyone else. It is creating inner tension within you. And your brain, your body is going to decide how that inner tension is going to come outward and manifest into physical form so that your body can deal with those repressed emotions of that burden. It's going to come out in back pain every time. It's not the structural abnormality. It is the tension that you are holding onto in your body. The second most commonality amongst people with TMS, Dr. Sarno found, was the goodist. So if you aren't the perfectionist, you're probably the goodist. So what is the goodist? Well, the goodist is someone who avoids confrontation. They're the peacemaker. They're the one that's always on alert to help someone else. They will drop everything they're doing to go and help someone else. They will self-sacrifice their own needs to help other people. The reason is because they have this need to be liked, and they have this fear of being disliked. And this may stem from deep feelings of inadequacy. Okay, the third most common personality trait stemming from that deep feeling of inadequacy is going to be low self-esteem. Someone who has very low self-esteem and feels inadequate can start to develop TMS because for the body would rather feel the physical pain than feel the emotional pain of the low self-esteem. They would rather, instead of feeling their own self-doubt and low self-worthiness, they would rather feel the physical pain and focus their energy on that rather than that low self-esteem. So now that we know where pain, muscle pain and dysfunction come from, how do we fix it? Do we have to go seek a therapist? Do we need a body worker? How do we address this? Well, the best way to fix it is to go into your subconscious mind and figure out what are these personality traits and what are these repressed emotions that we're holding on to. So journaling is the best way to do that. Get a piece of paper out and write down all of the personality traits that you have. Are you the perfectionist? Are you the goodist? Do you have low self-esteem? Write these personality traits down and journal about them. Where do they come from? Why do you feel that you have to do everything perfect? Were you seeking validation from a parent as a child? Were you a people pleaser? Start writing down how you feel about that. Write down all of the things all of the embarrassing moments you can think about that go all the way back to childhood. Write everything down. Spend 20 minutes every single day writing and journaling these types of things. And every time you do your 20 minutes, I want you to rip up what you write and throw it away. Nobody needs to read. You don't need to reread because once you pull it out of your subconsciousness into your consciousness, into your awareness, you have now healed it. You don't need to go back and reread it later. Also, when we are writing these things down, we could be naturally writing about other people, loved ones, people that are close to us. It isn't to say that we don't love them, so there's no reason for somebody else to read what you wrote about them. This has nothing to do with other people. It has to do with yourself. And if your spouse is a burden for you, you may need to write that down and get it out, but that doesn't mean that they need to know how you feel deep down, because nobody's perfect. Everyone's going to irritate us in some sort of way. Doesn't mean you love them any less. It just means that the fact that you need everything nice and neat and they don't drives you crazy. You need to write that down. But that doesn't mean that that's something you need to discuss with them. It's just something you need to work out in yourself, because what you need to dive deeper into is, why do you have to have everything nice and neat? Why does it bother you so bad? Who are you trying to please? Does this go back to being a child and you having to keep everything neat and clean so mom or dad wouldn't yell? Or this would be less of a burden for mom and dad and you could people please and get external validation from them. Where does this stem from? This is the point of the journal exercises, is to bring it out of the subconsciousness into the conscious mind and then let go of it. So we don't need to reread it. We need to rip it up and throw it away. But we should do this for 20 minutes every day until we get all of our pain worked through. And then you may need to just every once in a while journal how you're feeling for the day. So once you have reconciled all of your past experiences and your personality traits, then you can have a daily practice of writing down what happened throughout the day to move those daily emotions out of your body. I am going to do more videos on TMS and on journaling, because I do feel that even in my own line of work, that this is the most important piece, that this is what everyone is looking for. We're not looking to spend thousands of dollars on the latest and greatest muscle gadget or therapist or whatever. We can do this work ourselves and we can heal ourselves. So I want to get this message across to everyone that you have the ability to heal yourself. You just need to tap into your own subconscious mind and bring this out into your own awareness. And I look forward to making more videos on this topic and bringing the work that I do in my private practice here to YouTube land, so that you can learn how to use these techniques yourself and how to heal yourself. I thank you, my beautiful friends. Have a blessed and beautiful day. Namaste.